Hi everybody, my name is Heather Wesp and I'm here on the Kenneth J. Lehman Nature Trails at Montcalm Community College, and I'm going to talk to you about some of the different types of trails that we have, as well as some of the species that you can see this time of year. So we are currently on Wetland Way. So as you can see behind me, there's a small stable wetland area. Wetlands are transitions between dry areas and permanent bodies of water. So this one will have water most of the year. We can grow the two native species of cattails that exist here in Michigan. It's also, wetlands are going to be one of those places where we see some of the earliest signs of spring because of the abundance of water and organic matter. So we're going to come down here and we're going to look at one of the earliest spring flowers. And you might be thinking, I don't see any pretty petals, but this is the flower of the skunk cabbage. So skunk cabbage gets big, leafy, lettuce-looking leaves later in the season, but right now this reddish and greenish tinge, this is one flower, so we actually have a cluster of them. Skunk cabbage gets its name because the flower is actually quite stinky, but only to the beetle that pollinates it. So we can't smell it out here, and it tucks its reproductive structures inside, so if you take a closer look, you'd be able to see what the beetle sees. But this is one of our earliest signs of spring. These start to poke up out of the ground.
The bee is not afraid of me. I know the butterfly. The pretty people in the woods receive me cordially. The brooks laugh louder when I come. The breezes madder play. Wherefore, mine eyes, thy silver miss? Wherefore, O summer's day?
Hi everyone, we're here on Witch Hazel Trail, which is running through the edge of a forest that borders a wetland area, and we're starting small. So I want to draw our attention to this green carpeting that you see, which is one of the many mosses that you would observe on this trail. Mosses are some of our oldest, most primitive plants, but they're also some of the ones that we see first greening in the spring. They're common that they hold other plants, so we'll see other diversity in here, including this very small partridge berry, and we're very lucky because we've got one of last year's berries. Small paired leaves, and they usually have a very pale midrib or little line in the center of the leaf. I'm also going to move back right here and here. This is called wintergreen, and it gets its name because, much like the partridge berry, it overwinters, so it's green underneath the snow and the leaves year round. And so both of those have edible berries. And we're gonna move on to the next plant group now. We're gonna look at ferns. So this is one of last year's ferns. This is a common one called the bracken fern, and I know it's a bracken fern even in this state of disrepair because bracken ferns have 3 branches. So you can see the 2 that my hand are on and the one that broke off. It's the only fern you're going to see in the Michigan woods here with 3 branches, and it has roughly a triangular shape when it's a fresh growth. And now we're going to span over behind me to see the tree that this trail is named for. So many of the shorter, smallly grouped trees are called witch hazel. So right behind me you see a cluster of 5 to 8, and they only go up so tall and they start to fork. And witch hazel has a flower, a pretty yellow flower that we would see in the May. And I didn't look ahead of time for any leaves, so I'm not going to go digging now, but very common as you walk along this path. Any of the smaller 1 to 2 inch diameter grouped trees are going to be the witch hazel.
There will come soft rains and the smell of the ground, and swallows circling with their shimmering sound, and frogs in the pools singing at night, and wild plum trees in tremulous white. Robins will wear their feathery fire, whistling their whims on a low fence wire. And not one will know of the war, not one will care at last when it is done. Not one would mind, neither bird nor tree, if mankind perished utterly. And spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone.
Hi, I hope you just enjoyed that beautiful view of a tall American beech tree. American beeches are one of the easier trees to identify when you're out in the woods. They have a very smooth gray bark. Unfortunately, this also lends itself to folks wanting to leave behind a sign that they've been in the woods, so we would ask very nicely that you do not carve your name, initials, love for another person into these trees. It can harm their health and affect how they grow. So smooth gray bark. This is a fairly mature one. The other giveaway for the American beeches is they have a pretty simple leaf to identify. So if we were to look closely at the leaf, you can see it has kind of an oval shape with a pointed tip. And if you zoomed in on the edges, you would see that each vein that comes out has its own serrated tip. So this is called a serrated edge, but it's a dead giveaway of the American beech. And the fact that there's only one tip per vein lets us distinguish it from some of the other common beech trees here in the woods. If you look behind me, you'll see a lot of younger beeches, and beeches are one of the trees that tend to keep their leaves most of the winter. They're only going to drop them under the coldest circumstances, and so they still have them here when we're filming in March, but they'll be dropping them soon for this year's growth. We are standing on Ginger's Way, which is a woodland path, and farther back behind me it starts to go down, and that is a ridge that we'll be taking a look at here in a moment. In a Michigan forest, the dominant trees are maple and beeches, so those are also out here too if you took a look up to the sky. One other thing I'd like to take a moment to talk to you guys about is the fact that our nature trails are completely volunteer run. So we have a committee, and we welcome anybody to join us on the committee that kind of governs what activities we plan each year and also does a lot of the work on the trails. We have a volunteer activity coming up the Saturday following Earth Day, Saturday, April 24th, and you'll be seeing the information at the bottom of the screen on how to reach out and contact us about those hours, meeting locations, equipment, and so on. But if you've ever wanted to check out our trails or maybe make a difference, please reach out about how you can help.
We watched her grow up. She was the urgent chirper, fledgling flyer, and when spring rolled out its green, she'd grown into the most noticeable bird girl. Long-legged and just the right amount of blush, tipping her wings, crest and tail, and she knew it in the bird parade. We watched her strut. She owned her stuff. The males perked their armor, greased their wings, and flew skyloop missions to show off for her. In the end, there was only one. Isn't that how it is for all of us? There's that one you circle back to, for home. This morning, the young couple scavenges seeds on the patio. She is thickening with eggs. Their minds are busy with sticks this perfect size, tufts of fluff, like dandelion, and other pieces of soft. He steps aside for her so she can eat. Then we watch him fill his beak, walk tenderly to her, and kiss her with seed. The sacred world lifts up its head to notice we are double, triple blessed.
So we're here on Forest Ridge in the middle of a forest, but with a steep hillside behind us that finishes in a wetland. This is a great path if you're interested in a little bit more of a challenge in terms of walking, cross-country skiing, even biking is allowed back here. This would be great for the mountain bikers. I want to talk to you a little bit about the role of dead trees in a forest. So if you look here to my left, you'll see that there's several large trees down on the ground, and these quickly become habitat for all kinds of invertebrates. There's a lot of food there. The fungus can grow on them and break them down, and a lot of times you'll see your small rodents utilizing those as well. And if we pan over and focus on this upright dead tree behind me, this is called a snag, upright dead trees, and you want to leave dead trees alone because they provide all these important roles in the forest. You can see that one, there's some woodpecker activity, so there's cavities in there, and when the woodpeckers are done, that's when things like owls can move in and use those spaces, and eventually those upright ones will fall down and become homes for the chipmunks and the smaller invertebrates. So now we're going to head a little bit further down the trail. Because of the incline that we see here, it's very common that as the winds come through, we see straight line winds will knock some trees down sometimes. In fact, if you look, you can see an entire tree was uprooted, and you can see the large root mass behind me, and that creates some really unique opportunities because there's usually a big hole left behind where the roots were pulled out. That's going to fill with water and leaves and muck, and it becomes this whole micro habitat where we really specialize in different invertebrates. The frogs will take advantage of it. We'll get tadpoles. We might get some turtle life down there. So the forests are more than just the living trees. There's a whole lot at all stages of life for you to come out and experience.
Dear March, come in. How glad I am. I hoped for you before. Put down your hat. You must have walked. How out of breath you are. Dear March, how are you, and the rest? Did you leave nature well? Oh, March, come right upstairs with me. I have so much to tell. I got your letter, and the birds. The maples never knew that you were coming. I declare, how red their faces grew. But March, forgive me, and all those hills you left for me to hew. There was no purple suitable. You took it all with you. Who knocks? That April. Lock the door. I will not be pursued. He stayed away a year to call when I am occupied, but trifles look so trivial as soon as you have come. That blame is just as dear as praise, and praise as near as blame.
All right, welcome to Meadow Loop. We're sort of in the middle of Meadow Loop. Meadow Loop is one of the paved paths that goes around the campus. It's a fairly short, but the cool thing about Meadow Loop is it gives you the opportunity to hopefully observe bluebirds. As you notice as you walk around this field, there's a bluebird trail set up of bluebird houses. They require specific houses. They have to have a certain diameter of entry, and they also like them to be up on poles about 4 feet off the ground. It's primarily for predators. Bluebirds will also nest in cavities up in the trees. Another cool thing about this portion of the campus, there's a lot of dead trees, a lot of snags out back through here, and so even if the bluebirds didn't have these nesting boxes, they'd have other places to nest. Bluebirds will nest upwards of 30 feet in the air, and they'll nest in old woodpecker houses. Now, bluebirds also like to be spaced apart. They're a little bit territorial, and bluebirds are not the only things that live in these houses. That's another reason we put so many of them up. Bluebird trails encourage bluebirds, but they also provide houses for swallows, tree swallows specifically. If you come out to this trail late spring, early summer, these houses will be filled with tree swallows. Last year, actually, all tree swallows and no bluebirds. We have had some bluebirds nesting in this house specifically, but most of the others have been tree swallows. And that's okay, because tree swallows are also very cool. They swoop around and they're beautiful to watch. They're kind of a silvery purple with a white underbelly. Big difference between the tree swallows and the bluebirds. Bluebirds are all blue with a little bit of red in the males, and they kind of flash iridescent. And so you always know, again, watching the houses, tree swallows versus bluebirds.
Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay.
So here we are on South Twin Lake with North Twin Lake farther behind us. We happen to be on the east side of White Pine Trail, and so we have a gorgeous new dock out here which allow you to come out and explore. This is a great place to just sit, listen, watch. We saw some ducks as we walked up, a lot of turtle and frog life a little bit later in the season. If you follow me over to the left a little bit, the dead snags behind me are great for birding. You can sit here with binoculars, and we've got cattails right now. Later in the season, the turtles will pop up on the logs, and we'll see a beautiful purple flower called a pickerel weed. And then I love that we have this example of a tree right here close to the edge of the dock. So this is a speckled alder, and the first thing you're going to notice about it are last year's pine cones, and they're not actually pine cones. That's what they look like, right? But this is a deciduous tree, so we've got this year's new growth. So we've got the female, which is the kind of light green long structures, and then the new male structures are going to get bigger like these. And then this will leaf out and you won't see it quite as much. But come on out and check out our trails and see all of these beautiful sights. We'd love to have you.
I thought the earth remembered me. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. I slept as never before, a stone on the riverbed. Nothing between me and the white fire of the stars but my thoughts, and they floated light as moths among the branches of the perfect trees. All night I heard the small kingdoms breathing around me, the insects and the birds, who do all their work in darkness. All night I rose and fell, as if in water, grappling with a luminous doom. By morning I had vanished at least 12 times into something better.
Hi everybody, welcome to the west side of White Pine Trail. So in this video you got a chance to see the lake, and this is nearby. This happens to be my favorite trail on campus. I love the dominant white pines and the old feel that the forest has. So as you look around me, you can see the very large size of the white pines. And don't worry about the fact that the lower branches are dead or missing. That's actually quite typical. As they age, they only keep the live branches up near the top where they can reach the sun and do photosynthesis. The white pine is our state tree here in Michigan, and so if you were to get a closer up look at any of the branches, you would see that the needles tend to cluster near the ends on the regions of new growth. And if you really zoom in and you pluck a batch of needles off of the branch, you will see that they are bundled in groups of 5, just like the WHITE in white pine. So it's a really easy way to identify our state tree. 3-4 inches long at mature growth and in bundles of 5. Thank you so much for joining us on the trails today. I hope you've learned something, and I hope to see you on the trails soon. Bye.